shot! Kyoto! Dempsey takes it early. Oh, that is glorious! Mosquito going for a bicycle kick. O'Para scored!
The rest of the West, who will shine in 2018? We don't have to wait long to find out because tomorrow MLS is back, and today we are talking Houston, RSL, Seattle, Dallas, and Sporting Kansas City. It's a big one, and we are ready. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the 2018 MLS Season Preview Show, our fifth and final installment. We have been here all week breaking down every single team, every major storyline, and we're going out with a bang today. I'm Susanna Collins. It is my pleasure to be joined by this fine-looking crew. We have our armchair analyst, Mr. Matt Doyle. We have MLS contributor, former MLSer, Bobby Warshaw.
I'm ready to go play.
What's on your shoulders?
That's
a brand new jersey.
That's what I do before games.
Okay.
You know?
Brush it off. And, of course, host of Extra Time Radio, Andrew Wiebe. And you guys, you might have noticed we are dressed for MLS right now, aren't we? We look pretty good.
I feel a little bit like Maxi Urruti there. A little bit of the moves. Don't give
Dress
that,
for
please.
the job
Don't
you
give
want.
that.
That's what I say.
There
I'd
you
like
go.
to announce I am a free agent. Any MLS GM out there who needs...
What's your position?
So tempting.
You seem like a pivot.
So tempting.
You know, there hasn't been a run on free agents this offseason, so I think you're going to have some trouble finding a job.
A little bit of a luxury player.
He is, yeah, very much so.
So you've got a crew. You're wearing DC. Is this more of an emotional choice, Bobby?
Grew up a DC fan, went to games at RFK as a kid. They're really the ones that got me into MLS.
That's precious. What about you? I like this.
Well,
really
Minnesota
fresh
hit me up
here.
with one of the best 2018 jerseys in the mail. You can't see it on the back.
Do
It
one of
says
these, dude? Do one of
Wiebe.
these.
There's no number. That would be a 10 if I had to guess if they were going to print it up a second time.
Obviously.
I love this thing, man. I love the red button. It goes with the loon eye
super
here.
sharp. I know.
Yeah. I
That's
actually
nice.
think the Colorado Rapids, though, have the best home and away this year in MLS. Come at me in the comments section.
Disagree,
Let's see.
because I'm rocking the Vancouver Whitecaps jersey here. I just think this is super, super dope.
There's a
I
little
love the
street-
subtle,
yeah, there's a
the
little
subtle
streetwear aspect to
pattern.
that. You're gonna-
And this was strictly a fashion choice too, you guys. There was
Williamsburg?
like no loyalty.
Williamsburg's going to see that,
That
right?
looks good.
You're going to go out?
Absolutely.
In the city? Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
There you
We're
go.
going to hit
Rep
some
it.
bars in Williamsburg, and everyone's going to be jealous. All right, you guys, I want to take this opportunity to tell you guys to join MLS Fantasy League. Go to mlssoccer.com/fantasy. You can join a league there. You've got a league.
Yes, Extra Time Radio, as well as the Keep Wiebe Accountable League, which I needed to make sure that I set my lineup every week. But it got easier. 2 seasons, 17 and 17. Twim has a league.
Yeah, I think we are going to have a league, a little friendly competition
ETR
here.
v.
I like
Twim?
it.
Can
I'm
we
into
do
it.
that?
We'll
Okay.
do it. We'll
Yeah,
make it
let's
happen. Guys, also download that app. The MLS app, you can download it in the App Store or on Google Play. All your highlights, analysis, and just a
ton
whole
of
lot
us.
of us. So, which is always
so
a good
much
thing.
of us. It's so good.
And guys, don't forget tomorrow and Sunday, join us for Match Day Central. We're going to be bringing you some great content from right here in our MLS studios, highlights, analysis. We're going to be doing some really fun segments. We're all super excited about it, so you don't want to miss it. But right now, let's get into our season previews. We are going to start with the Houston Dynamo, and much in the same vein that Chicago kind of experienced this great turnaround last year, same for the Houston Dynamo. They found their stride under head coach Wilmer Cabrera, going a nice little playoff run. But my question, Andrew, is can they build on what they started in 2017?
Well, look, 2017 was a huge year for them because they had been not good for a couple years, and finally they vaulted up. And you can see it there. It was largely on their home form because they were awful on the road. 1 win, worst among playoff teams, plus 16 points year over year. Congratulations to Wilmer Cabrera. But Wilmer, the rest of the league now has 34 games of tape. And they know what you want to do, Doyle. You want to counter, and you want to hit on set pieces.
Yeah, and that's what they did, and they rode that to the playoffs. I will say this about the Dynamo. If you look at expected goals, which I put a lot of faith in, they were one of the best teams in the league, which tells me they were well coached. They executed the game plan well. But as Andrew just said, there are 34 games of tape on that game plan now. MLS coaches are going to be out there dissecting it and understanding how to go at the Dynamo and make it tough on them.
All right, well, let's take a look at some of the offseason roster moves for the Houston Dynamo. Out, Cubo Torres, that's a big one. Rico Clark, but in we've got Alejandro Fuenmayer, the defender. They obtained Arturo Alvarez from Chicago. Chris Seitz in goal. Bobby, your thoughts here?
You know the big thing when you look at this list, Susanna, is there's not a lot of big names, and I don't want Houston fans to feel like that's necessarily a bad thing, because there's a lot of value in just having camaraderie, to having cohesiveness, to having an extra year under your belt in the original style, and then to learn the new one, but also build relationships, become friends with the group, and that's a big part of how Wilmer Cabrera likes the team to be anyway.
All right, well, for more on this Houston Dynamo lineup, we have Andrew and Matt standing by at that board, gentlemen.
That chemistry, that cohesion, you already see it on social media with these young bucks up top, Kyoto, Manotas, and Albert Elise. I'm not worried about the attack. I think they can figure that part out. I'm a little bit concerned about the age and the talent here in those back six.
Yeah, Beasley's 36, Senderos is 32, 33, Leonardo's 30, Machado's 33. Cabezas is the young buck of this back six. He's like 26 or 27. It's not ideal. They're going to have to add depth throughout the season, but as Bobby said, chemistry matters a lot. On-the-job know-how matters a lot. These guys have worked together. I think that should serve them well. I'm not as concerned about that as maybe I could be if it was another team.
We're going to get to Tomas Martinez here in a second. He's the number 10, got half a season to get going. The youngster, they'll count on him this year. Albert Elise, same. Manotas. Romel Kyoto, though, he doesn't get the same pub as these other guys, but they're reliant on the front three. It's got to be a trident.
It does have to be a trident. The reason Kyoto doesn't get the same pub is because he's an enigma. One day he'll show up and he'll be the best player on the team. Next 2 weeks he won't show up hardly at all. Honduras saw it in World Cup qualifying. Dynamo saw it last year at the end of the season. They need to get 2,500 good minutes from him. I'm not sure it's going to happen.
We will see young bucks up top. Susanna, we're excited to see how they work.
Young bucks indeed. All right, when you look at that attack, we talked about it. Elise, Manotas, Martinez, a young, potent attack. But, Bobby, are they too young?
No, they're not too young. The other interesting part of this is, you guys, we see a trend with TAM where everyone is valuing depth. They're bringing in roster moves that can get 2-3 deep. This team doesn't have it. They've got the 4 youngsters. They're really betting on these 4 guys staying healthy, staying fresh throughout the year. And as I said earlier, that's just the kind of manager Wilmer Cabrera is. He's a put your arm around you and show he believes in you, which can go a long way, particularly for younger guys.
Well, the cohesion goes a long way, but they do need to have that plan B. Last year, they eventually sort of found it last year by having their wingers go in one-on-one situations more often. But that was Vicente Sanchez, and he's gone. And they don't have another sort of 1v1 wizard like that. To me, it has to be more about combining in the final third, pass and move a little bit, maybe even some high pressure.
Look, and that's where Tomas Martinez comes in, because last year, look, Elise, Kyoto, they were straight line players. They were get out on the break, find open space, take them on 1v1, make it happen yourself. Elise is one of the most exciting young players in this league. Hype train on him all day long. 10-4 last year in just 18 games started for Albert Elise. That's incredible production, but they need more time on field from him. No Gold Cup, no Honduras in the World Cup. They should get more from him. I look at Mauro Manotas and I say, can Wilmer Cabrera be not the Kubo whisperer, the Manotas whisperer? He quietly had 10-5 last year, actually started more games than this man right here, Albert Elise. This front 3, front 4, really, they got to band together. They got to go after it. They got to be aggressive.
Use the ball.
Yes.
Okay, so prediction time. Is this team better than they were last year?
No. I think that the West is due for a correction, and they benefited last year from what was a conference that went through a lot of upheaval and turmoil with some of the best historically squads. So I think they're not as good as last year. I think they're fighting to get into the playoffs. Then it comes down to luck. Then it comes down to health. Then it comes down to that front 4 finishing their opportunities.
Correction's the right word at the West. What Houston did early in the season was great, but teams still haven't figured it out. I'm not sure they'll have plan B ready yet.
I think they will be better, but I do worry about the defense. If they're not better, it's not because of plan B. It's because the defense comes apart.
All right, let's move on to a team that was just a hair away from making the postseason last year. That is Real Salt Lake. And for me, this is one of the most fun teams to watch, just a young, dynamic squad. I absolutely love their coach in Mike Petke. And Matt Doyle, I know that you are super high on this RSL team as well. Tell us why.
Yeah, high on the team, not so high on their printers. But I love them for the same reason everybody else does. They're young, they're fast, they're fun, they're fearless. They don't care who's in front of them. They're going to try to take you on off the dribble. They do a good job of combining together, largely because that man right there, Albert Rusnak, is probably the most underrated playmaker in the league. And it feels like they're on the come up. It feels like they've done just about everything right in developing these kids. And that's a story that I think we all like, right? That's what we want from MLS teams.
That's exactly right. The other thing is they just seem like they have fun playing together.
Yeah.
Don't they? They seem like a bunch of young guys who are stoked to be at this level, who are stoked to be around each other and be in the field together. It shows when they play, and it's fun to watch.
Look, the problem last year was they were just terrible to start.
Yeah.
They dug themselves such a huge hole that the second half of the season, when we all sat back and said, God, this team is fun to watch, just wasn't enough in the end because of the craziness on decision day. This is my MLS Live, ESPN Plus, however you want to put it, team of the year. This is who I'm watching when I have that Saturday night, and maybe I'm not at work, but I'm still at home because I have a kid, so I'm going to watch the game. This will always be the first team that I put on.
Thank you. I'm with you.
Plug, by the way.
It was very well done. Very well done. Let's take a look at some of the offseason roster moves for RSL. Out Chris Wingert, the veteran, but in we've got Brooks Lennon, Alfredo Artuño. What do you think, Doyle?
I mean, Lennon, they were able to buy him outright last year. Artuño is going to be the guy I think who will start as number 9. Bobby probably disagrees with that. They expect him to get goals. Even if it's by platoon, I think that position will be better than last year. The guy I really watch is Damir Kreilach, who's a box-to-box midfielder, will play that number 8 role in front of Kyle Beckerman. But there is some worry about Kyle Beckerman. He's 36 years old. Nick Ramondo's 38 or 39 as well. Both guys have been in the league 20 years just about. They found the Fountain of Youth midway through last season. They need to keep drinking from the Fountain of Youth in 2018.
All right, well, for more on this RSL lineup, we have Andrew and Bobby standing by at the board. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Susanna. Here at the board, the analysis has begun. We're here for RSL. Yes, I hear you groaning at home. I couldn't resist it, Bobby. Let's start with this guy. Luis Silva, kind of playing a false 9 here. He's not technically a center forward, but Yura Movsisyan is off the radar. It looks like it'll be him or Alfredo Artuño.
I'm super high on Silva, Andrew, and this is why. Neither of these wingers are get down the line guys. They are much more cut in, combine with the center striker, and that's what Silva's good at. He doesn't want to get in the box and poach. He wants to play. He wants the ball into his feet, lay it off, spin with them. He just combines nicely with the runners that come behind him.
All right, Kyle Beckerman throwing me off here. Still got the dreads. I don't know how I'm going to recognize him on the field. I do have questions, though, here. On the back line, particularly at outside back. Center back, I think you're fine. But DeMar Phillips, Adam Henley, Phillips on the older side. Henley hasn't played in about 2 years, has a weird reputation. Do you have any concern there?
Absolutely, especially in 2018 when outside backs are so important. And now in MLS, we see it all over. Teams are investing in the outside back position. It's so important. And for, a decade essentially, guys, they had mainstays in Beltran and Wingert. 2 new faces, it's definitely a question mark for this club.
RSL, after a year where they barely missed the playoffs, well, they're fighting for more, Susanna. We'll see if they can get it.
We sure will. All right, so Doyle, I want to talk a little bit about a guy that you have gone on record as saying is your Defender of the Year, Justin Glad. Make the case right now.
Yeah, my preseason pick for Defender of the Year. If you look at what he's done the last 2 years, the on-off splits for RSL, when he's in the game, they're a top 3 defense. When he's out of the game, they are a rolling dumpster fire. And I believe that correlation and causality are sort of married in this regard. Glad is so gifted at reading the game. I think his reads are lightning quick, and then he has the speed and reactions and sort of straight line athleticism to make it work for him. I mean, it's going to be a leap to get Defender of the Year at 2021, but I think he's talented enough for it.
Okay, so fair to say we're all pretty high on this RSL team.
Yep.
What is their ceiling?
I think their ceiling is to compete for the number 1 spot in the Western Conference. I mean, that means that all these young guys really mature in a special way, that Justin Glad spent his offseason, preventing injury, but getting stronger to deal with the Fernando Adis of the world, and that whoever plays center forward produces, whether that be opening up the play for everybody else, which means 10 goals plus for all 3 behind him, or being the goal scorer himself. This team could be one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, I had 6 weeks ago. I had him number 1 on my West list. I'm going to stick to that, guys.
You are proud of that.
I know,
I'm
you really
so
are.
proud. I'm going to say it over and over unless they don't have number 1 on the West. But if they do, the problem is, like Andrew said, there's just young guys. You're putting a lot of emphasis on younger players developing, which you can never fully bet on. If they do, they could be the top of the West.
Yeah, we already saw maybe a little setback with Danny Acosta, who I thought would be the starting left back.
That's kind of a heartbreaker, isn't it?
It is, but I think he's a good kid when his heart is in the right place. They got to get his head in the right place. I think they will. They have the structure there. They care about that. Their ceiling is number 1 in the West and maybe an appearance in MLS Cup. Their floor, I can't see this team missing the playoffs. I just can't. I can't do it. I think this is a playoff team in 2018.
You should apologize to RSL now. Apologize now.
Yeah, we just jinxed it, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Hey, stop it right now. All right, let's move on to our MLS Cup runners-up, the Seattle Sounders, and the big news out of Seattle, of course, Jordan Morris out for the season with that torn ACL. We talked about this earlier in the week. You know, last year they were able to survive a good chunk of time without Jordan Morris. My question is, can they do it again, especially with the West getting so much stronger in the offseason?
Seattle is so talented, guys. Top to bottom, they've got good players. They also have depth. The big question with the Sounders is, with the way Brian Schmetzer manages, which is essentially let the guys figure it out on the field, I wonder if it's time that he has to change that in MLS. If there's now too many teams, too many managers who set up definitive styles, and they're going to watch a tape on Seattle and find the weaknesses, and Seattle needs to find an identity they can stick with.
Yeah, Greg Vanney killed him with exactly that in MLS Cup, and now without Jordan Morris, he doesn't have one more option. He doesn't have the speed option.
Right.
So he can't fine-tune as much as he could
Which is
otherwise.
a safety valve a lot of the time.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's take a look at some of the roster moves for the Seattle Sounders in the offseason. Out the big names, Brad Evans and Jovan Jones. But in, I gotta love some of these names, Andrew. And Walla Buana, Kim Ki-hee. What do we think?
Okay,
aside
look,
from their great
they
names?
filled in some spots that they needed to. Waylon Francis comes in, a veteran in this league. He will provide depth, perhaps a starter if they need him. Kim Ki-hee, a late signing, TAM signing, center back. You have Chad Marshall. You have Roman Torres. They're two of the best center backs in the league. Torres is going to the World Cup, and you need some depth just in case they're on the older side. And look, Handwalla has been good this preseason. So that's a young player they're excited about. I think they made the moves they needed to. Couldn't have predicted Jordan Morris. Now what do you do?
What do you do? Well, we have Matt Doyle and Bobby Warshaw at the board to tell us. Guys.
Susanna, it feels weird talking about the Seattle Sounders without Ozzie Alonso in the midfield. Probably over the last decade, the best defensive midfielder in the league, but might not be there this year.
I'll say the best defensive midfielder in league history. That's Ozzie Alonso's career in this league. But Svensson was better than him last year, and I think it's because he's a slightly less adventuresome player. He sits and protects the back line a little bit more rather than going to sort of ball hawk, and that allows Roldan to run up and pressure or to play passing lanes.
And the outside backs to get forward.
Right. And I just want to say, this midfield is going to work pretty much no matter who they put out there, but I do wonder if it'll really be Rodriguez, because I don't think Dempsey's going to play as a false nine. I think he's going to drop deep, and Will Bruin's going to be up there.
Well, the weird thing about Dempsey as a false nine is if he drops in, you need wingers who are going to get in behind, which neither of these guys are. Neither of them are real players who want to run behind, and that's the loss of Morris. For me, Matt, I just want to identify Nuhu. I'm a big fan of Nuhu. I'm excited where he can go this year.
Breakout player maybe in 2018. That's Bobby's words, by the way, not mine.
All right, so Andrew, when we look at the core of this team, I'm going to throw out some names
go
here.
for it.
All right, Clint Dempsey.
34.
Chad Marshall.
He is 33.
Will Bruin.
He is 28.
Roman Torres.
He's 31. I'm going to throw some other ones out.
That's okay.
Gustav Svensson, 31.
Yes.
Ladero and Victor Rodriguez, both 28.
The point being, this is a lot of years accumulated amongst that group.
This is the year for this squad. If you're talking about final runs, final windows closing, it's not that they're like slipping through, but they know that this is the time. They need to go win a championship. They did not have the performance in MLS Cup they wanted last year. Sure, they got one in 2016, but this group has the talent, the ability, the experience to get multiple in 3 years. This year, it's all about one thing.
They're fighting to keep that window open for one more season. And to me, they're either the 2014 Galaxy who did it or the 2015 Galaxy who very much did not do it. So that's what it is for the Sounders.
Okay, so this leads me to our prediction segment right here. Is it cup or bust for the Seattle Sounders? Are they all in?
They're all in for MLS Cup.
Yeah.
That's what they care about, and I still think they're the best team in the West. It's tough imagining them beating either Toronto, Atlanta, or NYCFC from the East. But this is the best team in the West.
Yeah.
So you think they make it there from the West?
Probably. Wouldn't bet my life on it. I'd bet yours.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, November is going to be interesting.
Mr.
here at MLS Soccer.
Schmetzer, please. All right, they can make it that far. They're in contention. Will they make it? It's hard to say, but they can definitely be one of the top few.
They have all the pieces. They have the experience. They have the talent. They are missing Jordan Morris. They do have the summer to make a move. So MLS Cup or bust? I'm going to say bust just because of the odds. That doesn't mean they'll have a bad season. They'll be at the top of the West. They'll make a run in the playoffs. I just think 3 straight years probably not going to happen.
All right, well, on that down note, let's talk about trouble in the Big D. FC Dallas. I think it's fair to say we have not seen such a big fall from grace as the one we did for FC Dallas. One of the best teams in the league in 2016. They start out 2017 so hot, and it just plummeted halfway through the season. That has seemingly carried over. They are out of CCL competition. What's going on, Bobby? What's going on in Dallas?
That's the $1 million question right now. They would like to know. Right now, it just feels like things have gotten a little stale, and Oscar's doing everything he can to mix it up, but the one thing he really hasn't done is rotated guys in that front 4 or 5. Barrios, Urruti, big question marks there. It just felt like they lost interest at the end of the year, and we were really curious. The big question was, will they look revitalized this year? Will they look they have energy? And they don't based on those first 2 games. And yeah, that Champions League dismissal was concerning.
Yeah, their CCL fever broke. Unfortunately, Tauro did the job and looked good doing it. And this was a team that really could not afford, in the beginning of the season, after last season's collapse, to have a gut punch. And then they got gut punched. And then Oscar Pareja was in that press conference saying, yes, this was a failure, which props to Oscar Pareja because it absolutely was for this team. They should be going farther. My question is, from that chemistry standpoint, from the freshening up, this all went downhill last year, late July. Well, what happens late summer? The transfer window opens, and they had some heads turned. More than a couple, actually. And now they moved on from Walker Zimmerman, but they still have some of those guys. What happens if first 3 months of the season are no good and they hit the summer? What happens to this team? Oscar Pareja got to find a way to bring them together.
All right, well, let's take a look at some of the offseason roster moves for FC Dallas. As you mentioned, out Walker Zimmerman. That's a big loss in the back. But in we've got Anton Nedeljkov, Rito Ziegler. Doyle, what do you make of all this?
Santiago Mascara as well. I mean, those 3 guys are starters. You don't find a lot of teams around the league that imported 3 starters from outside the league. Clearly, Oscar Pareja is trying to freshen it up, but they looked like they forgot how to defend against FC Tauro. Carlos Berezo in particular was sort of running around and like trying to spray passes. I think kind of using him wrong. And once you're using your number 6 wrong, it's just a cascade of failures throughout the lineup. They have to tighten up. They got to figure out how to do it quick.
Well, the good news, we've got Andrew and Bobby at the board. They're going to figure it all out for Dallas.
Thank you, Suzanne. All right, Bobby, let's take a look at the FC Dallas starting 11. First thing that stands out to me, I'm going to make a big circle right here because normally we find Kellen Acosta in that space, but hernia surgery has him out 6 to 8 weeks. How much does that hurt?
It hurts him a lot, but the big thing with FC Dallas, if you remember back to when they won the Supporter Shield, they just had a clear identity, Andrew, and that identity was hard work, catch you on the counter, just hold each other accountable in the middle of the park, and it feels like they lost that. It feels like when they get on the ball, they're not sure what they're supposed to do or how they're supposed to orchestrate the game.
I mentioned late summer being a stumbling block for them. From first all the way down to 7th, they had some issues, they had a little drama. Maxi Urruti, Barrios, both subject of transfer rumors. You think they should freshen those 2 spots up right now from the bench?
They really do. They've really been 2 main consistent guys ever since they hit the slump last year. And they've got 2 guys on the bench, Lamar and Coleman, who struggled in their first year. But a lot of players this year to this league struggle in their first year, and they might do a little better the second time.
All right, we got some first-year players on the back line. Reggie Cannon, just experience-wise. Ziegler, new left back. Does that worry you?
It does, but you know what? It all comes down to this guy. It all comes down to Matt Hedges. Not only is he a good player, but he's the leader. He's got the armband. He's got to be the one to bring these new guys into the fold and say, hey, this is how FC Dallas plays. This is our identity. This is who we're going to be.
Matt Hedges needs a bounce-back year. Pressure's on, Susanna.
A lot of pressure on Matt Hedges, also a lot of pressure on Mauro Diaz. Now, truth be told, this guy was my favorite player in 2016. He was so good. I was absolutely heartbroken when he went down with that Achilles injury. I think that they could have contended for Cup that year had he not gone down with that injury right before playoffs. Came back in 2017, but just wasn't quite the same dynamic player we saw. Doyle, can he return to form?
Yeah, I think he can. I think we saw it over 180 minutes against Tauro. He was, I think, pretty easily Dallas's best player, and you saw they wanted to funnel everything through him. The key to getting him back to form is getting the right players around him. And I'm starting to wonder if Michael Barrios is still that guy, if Maxi Urruti is still that guy, and if they have the right balance behind him. Because with Grezo and Vic Ulloa, because the Costa out, those guys are both 6s to me. Those guys are both defensive midfielders. They weren't getting the ball onto Diaz's foot in good spots quick enough, and they were asking him to do too much. It is systemic. It is holistic. Oscar's got to figure it all out.
All right, so prediction time. Can this team fix what ails them? Is there enough time to right the ship in 2018?
I mean, I felt fairly bullish before CCL. Bobby, I know you and I felt the same way, but now you're just wondering if it's same old with this team. Oscar's going to have to go into that locker room, tactically figure out what works for them, what works for the personnel. And then you have to look at guys that they brought in. These defenders, got to hit. Mosquera, he's got to be closer to Fabian Castillo than not. And if that happens, I think this team can get in there because they have the talent.
You know, their best chance to get into the playoffs is almost not focusing on the first 2 months. Oscar Pareja says we need to rebuild, build our foundation for 2 months, and sneak into the 5 or 6 spot at the end.
I'm as shook as you guys are by the CCL performance. I had them in before that.
You gonna stay brave?
No, I'm not going to stay brave. I'm going to be a coward. I think this is a sub-playoff team again.
Typical.
All right. Well, let's move it along to Sporting Kansas City. Now, this is a team that we all know how strong they are in the back. Goalkeeper of the year, Tim Melia. Defender of the year in 2017, and Iko Para. But the question, Andrew Wiebe, can they score goals?
I mean, that's the forever question right now. The question was, could they sign a number 9 in the offseason? And that answer was no. So I hope Diego Rubio, Kyrie Shelton, maybe Daniel Shalhoub work out for them up top, because they have the defense, they have the midfield talent. Do they have the production? 40 goals scored, second fewest among playoff teams. If the defense isn't uber elite again, that could be tough for this team, and we've already seen they run out of steam late in the summer.
They do. Every year they run out of steam late in the summer, and each of the last 4 years they have underperformed their expected goals. They underperformed it massively the last 2 years. I understand the idea of bringing Diego Rubio back because the underlying numbers like him, but that's the point with Sporting Kansas City. Underlying numbers like them every single year, and they fade every single year. Peter Vermes has got to figure out this one.
Rubio scored in 2 ways last year, either at home or against bad teams, or both. That has to change.
It's like 3/4 of the games, though.
I thought the Western Conference was getting better, Bobby.
Well played, Bobby. Well played. All right, let's take a look at the offseason roster moves for Sporting Kansas City. They lose Latif Blessing in the expansion draft. Eric Palmer-Brown also out. Benny Feilhaber out, but in Johan Koizé, Emiliano Amor, Johnny Russell. Bobby, what do you think here?
I'm most interested by Koizé. Losing Feilhaber, and if you look at that midfield, it's a bunch of energy. It's very combative guys. There's not really anybody else on that team other than Croizet who can create a play out of nothing. And I'm okay with creating chances from pressing and hard work, but at some point you do need a playmaker. You need somebody to break open a game, and almost all of that for KC falls on Croizet.
All right, well, for more on this KC lineup, we have Matt Doyle and Andrew Wiebe standing by at the board, guys.
All right, Croizet, Johnny Russell, Diego Rubio. Is it enough? Because I think behind it looks fine.
It remains to be seen. You know that it takes a while, usually, for international players to adjust to the league. They like Russell. They like Croizet, even though he wasn't particularly good in preseason. I'm shocked to hear Bobby say that he is worried about the playmaker, because as far as I knew, he was all about this central midfield, which is going to be just devastating.
But there's no playmaker here.
There's going to turn you over everywhere on the pitch. These guys have nonstop work rates. They're going to make it bumper cars in central midfield.
All right, no worries about the back line, except for age, probably here.
Yeah, I mean, Beasler's over 30, Zusi's over 30. I actually think it's going to be Christian Lobato, who's a winger that they're going to play at left back to try to generate a little more going forward from this position. A little bit of worry about Iko Para, too, who's never had 2 healthy years in a row.
All right, please, no injuries for Ike. He's one of our favorites in MLS, Susanna. Knock on wood for me.
He certainly is. We're knocking on wood over here. All right, well, let's talk about reigning goalkeeper of the year, Tim Melia, tied for second in MLS in 2017 with 10 shutouts. But Bobby, can he continue to be this good for Sporting KC?
He absolutely can, because the best part of Emilia's game is his positioning. If you look at him, your first thought is he's not that big, and it's probably what held him back so long in MLS. But he makes up for that size with his positioning. Where he is, he takes good angles, and it makes him look bigger than he is, guys. And position is something that is consistent from year to year.
I'm unabashedly a Tim Melia homer. This is a guy that put in his dues, that, when times looked tough for him, when he could have quit, he didn't. And over the years, he interned basically under the Nick Ramondos of the world, the Jeff Casares as a goalkeeping coach, the Dan Kennedys out at Chivas USA. He got better. He got better. He got better. And now he got an opportunity, and he's seized it, and he is for sure one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the league. It helps he has that back line, but he makes every play he needs to.
That's exactly the point I was going to make, man. Melia was great last year, and he could be great again this year, but if that back line falters, it's going to look a lot different for Sporting Kansas City in 2018.
I'm going to make one point. Yes, the back line helped Melia, but Melia helped the back line as well. So it's a symbiotic relationship.
Good point. All right, so
SAT
prediction
word
time.
from Andrew, right?
Look at that. Look at that. Guys, is this the year? Is this the year they finally get past the knockout rounds in the playoffs? What do we think?
Let's start first with, will they make the playoffs? Let's not jump to that conclusion. I know this has been one of the most consistent playoff teams in the league over the last, 6, 7, 8 years. Yeah, it's been incredible. Props to Peter Vermes on that side. But the West just got a lot better, and you didn't go get your goal scorer. So if Diego Rubio doesn't hit, if Kyrie Shelton doesn't hit, if they can't score goals, and for whatever the reason the back line falters, or they falter in late September, It could be same old story for this team.
It's going to be a bloodbath down at that playoff line in the Western Conference. You guys keep saying it. Everybody in the West just about has improved, and I'm not sure that Sporting KC have. I understand they made moves, and maybe in theory they're better, but this year I need to see it in practice before I truly believe it. That said, I believe in the system. I believe in they're always organized defensively. I think they are a playoff team, but I think it's an early exit once again.
You guys, I really like the unique style. We've talked about a lot of teams being pass and move, possession. I cannot wait to see what this midfield three does against those teams in the playoffs, and I think that this is a team that is very well suited to play in those one-off games.
Here's the question. How good was their scouting? Did they hit on Russell? Did they hit on Crozet? Did they hit on Rubio from a couple of windows ago? If their scouting is good, they will be a playoff team.
Guess what? We'll find out soon because MLS starts up again tomorrow. You guys, that is a wrap on our season preview shows. But if you missed any of them, don't worry. Go to our MLS YouTube page. You can watch all 5. That's a whole lot of MLS preview content right there. And click like, subscribe while you're at it. Guys, also join our fantasy league, MLSsoccer.com/fantasy. Join a league. It'll be fun. Download that MLS app. Join us for Match Day Central on Saturday and Sunday. The crew is going to be here. We're going to be doing some really fun segments, highlights, analysis, all of that. Dress for MLS too, you guys. Get your kits out. It's about that time. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, enjoy all the MLS action this weekend. We'll see you real soon.